Test. Okay, now it's working, I think. Alright, hello everyone, welcome. We're gonna be doing a new series. Let me do a quick notification. Okay. Okay, so let me pull up the link. Okay. Actually, I think I actually want to change that thumbnail. 1 second. Where is it? Where the fuck is it? Okay. Where? Okay. YouTube. I never downloaded them, I guess. Okay. 1 second. Sorry, 1 second. I'm just gonna I thought I did this before. Yeah, let me do that. That'll definitely help. Okay. Okay, change. There we go. Okay. And then let's grab the link. Where the fuck is the link? Okay. Sorry. Okay, so this should have been a little bit smoother. Sorry. Oh, there's like a fan blasting. I can actually turn that off once again. Okay. 1 second. Okay. That should be better now. I think. Okay, so there's like a fan blasting me. I can actually turn that off. Okay. 1 second. Okay, we've caught up. Okay, so that's better. All right, so we're creating a new series, sort of. Basically, it's called Having a Dialogue, and the point is not to do like an OMG reaction video, but to kind of like watch and add to the conversation of a video. So it's kind of taking the reaction concept, but making it a little bit more detailed than just simply reacting to it for content. I'm someone who has reacted to videos before, but more for content rather than actually having a discussion. This is purely going to be about having a discussion, engaging in the topic, talking about it, and we'll keep doing that with different videos, different things, and maybe it'll be edited down at some point, I don't know. But the goal is to have a dialogue regarding the situation, not to point fingers, blame, not to harass anyone or anything. No, the whole point is just to have a conversation relating to it. And I already know what we're going to react to first to kick off the series. And it's the latest episode that Alexa Nicholas did. And I'm doing this video because I think it's very important to watch and discuss the contents of. And that is her response to deleting the Drake Bell video. Okay, so let's pull up the video. And we're going to have a conversation. I know. Okay, we're going to have a conversation talking about it. I'm not sure if I should show the video itself or just have the dialogue. I guess we can just... It would make sense to have it. I don't want it to be like a reaction video, but it would make sense to kind of have it like on here. So 1 second. Okay. So this is a moment from the stream. It's not a dedicated video, but it is her talking about the Drake Bell video. So for those of you who don't know, the context of this is that a little bit ago, when Drake Bell was accused of the things that he did, she made a video about that situation. However, later on, especially after the release of Quiet on Set, that video was removed from the channel. And that sparked a bit of controversy from people. Some people who didn't know why she deleted it. Some people who kind of assumed why she had deleted it. And it spiraled way beyond what it should have been. Far beyond what it should have been. I didn't know she was doing her channel at the time this all like unfolded. So, this is just stuff that I've kind of learned about going down the rabbit hole. But let's see what she has to say, and let's talk about this. Okay? So I don't want to call this a reaction video. It's not really a reaction video. It's more of a dialogue. So, yeah. Let's just watch it.
I mean, I know people are like, Twitter is toxic. It really is.
It is a toxic place.
Really put the X in toxic. He really...
Okay. For those of you who don't know, I made the decision this year to delete my Twitter account completely. Of course, I had to make one for Power to Survivors, but I did delete my main Twitter, and I don't use Twitter. It's just not something that I do. I used to actively, and then I was thinking, why am I using this platform when there's so much negativity on it? There's so much bad culture on Twitter. Like, I feel like people talk about how Reddit is like the cesspool of social media. I actually disagree. You can find some really good subreddits on Reddit without the toxic nature that everyone talks about on social media. It requires good moderating, but you can find subreddits that are actually good to be a part of. That can't be said with Twitter. With Twitter, every community has its problems. Like, every community has its problems. I will say Reddit is a little bit harder to navigate, and it's a little bit more dangerous because you kind of create a paper trail of things, and you might say something that, maybe you didn't think anyone would see, but it's on your profile, and when you become famous, it blows up in your face. So there is that. And there is this idea that social media can be anonymous, which I don't actually agree with. I don't think social media can be anonymous. I think you can try as much as you can, but if someone wants to find you, they will. It's been proven time and time again. Even with the smallest bit of detail, someone can find you. Absolutely. Never share anything that you don't want someone to know about and tie it back to you. Because they will. They will. It doesn't matter how private you are. Even the faceless YouTubers have been found and discovered. So I don't think there's a way you can really be on social media without having some form of identity. Now, whether or not that is the true authentic self, that is a whole nother issue. Also, because of the character limits, especially on Twitter, the 250 character limits, sometimes there's not enough space to say what you want. And for me, I remember when I used to use Twitter, I used it as a place to vent, which was not really a good idea, but I did. Wish I didn't. But when you're not in the right mindset to use Twitter, it can be a very, very bad place to be. Sometimes people use it as their therapy, their alternative to therapy, and it doesn't work. Don't do that, because it creates a very dangerous situation as well. But yeah, I did delete Twitter. I don't know if I'll make a new account. I really don't want to. So I think the only way that I'll use it is through Power to Survivors.
They did, didn't they? I was always wondering what the X was for. And then lately I'm like,
What?
for toxic? That's what it is. A bunch of people bashing each other.
Porn.
That's all it's become. And then some good things, spreading of information, sure. But so many people tearing each other down. For what? What?
Here's the thing about social media. Social media initially was created to be this online virtual town hall. Okay. That's the initial purpose of social media, to be able to engage with each other face to face, but with each other online through a screen, right? Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, whatever, it wasn't built for what we use it now. Now, we have grown social media so big that people have now used it as, well, there's the good and the ugly of social media. There is the good and the ugly of the internet. I would say the good of the internet is that we can have this dialogue. We can have these spaces. We can have these conversations with people from all over the world, not have to pay tickets to go into one place, and we can meet people. We can talk to people. Now we know what is happening around the world. Now we know how other people feel in their cultures. Now we know everything. It's impossible to escape. And I think some people who used to use social media as an escape have not learned the behavior to no longer do that, right? Most people, went to social media because it was an anonymous place to be, and they didn't have to face anyone. They didn't have to put any masks or filters or walls or anything. They could truly say what they wanted to say if no one knew who they were. what it does is it destroys any integrity of any person. Because now, instead of saying it to no one, where no one will know, right? No one will know how you are off screen, or no one will know. Now they know. Now they know because they can see it. They see that behavior. And when they tie it back to you, that's where the accountability lies in, right? There used to not be that notoriety on social media where you would be so big, so recognizable, that people would immediately know who you are and be able to tie that back to your life. Like, that is a newer concept to social media. Like, from 2012, I would say, is when social media started being so big that you did have people at social media, at celebrity status, that now is like, now people are influenced by them. Now people look up to them and watch them. Like, that was never a role in social media until it was. It just became a role. And the people that blew up didn't necessarily have the responsibility power or the maturity to use that power to teach right and wrongs and whatever. They instead used it for like entertainment or anything. Like, it wasn't really supposed to be a role model position. It's not really someone that you're supposed to aspire to be, but it becomes that way. It's just really grown a lot, far beyond what it used to be, and I think that is kind of the problem to social media. It was built for one purpose, used for another purpose, and now that purpose is so unmoderated, unregulated. Like, here's the thing. The internet used to be just the wild, wild west. There were no laws, there were no rules, there were no guidelines, there were no moderators, nothing. So people became used to the idea that you could say whatever you wanted without any consequence, and it was cool to do so. It was cool to do so back then. It was cool to say racist jokes and sexist jokes and slurs and anything you wanted to say. Do blackface, make fun of people, cyberbully. Like, it was all cool. And people grew up being taught that that was okay to do. And now, as adults, they still think it's okay because there have been no consequences to doing so. And when there are no consequences, there's no correction. There's no ability to learn that that is wrong. And so they continue to do it regardless. There's no filtering anymore. You can try to suppress them as much as possible, but there's always going to be a corner of the internet that is dedicated to that discussion. You can't just erase a group of people because you don't agree with what they're saying, or because they are, in your eyes, toxic. It doesn't work, because they're still saying those things in a smaller area, and they're still having influence over the people that they are talking to, that are willing to listen to them. And if no one is willing to engage, if no one is willing to have that conversation and say, hey, this is not okay, like, hey, this needs to change, then it won't change, because they're being taught that it's okay to do that. and that there is no consequence to doing so. Yeah, I mean, that's just kind of social media in general.
Does that do nothing? It actually just repeats the cycle of it. And now people feel justified and anonymous to go and try and tear each other down.
Yeah.
And seeing how people have been treating survivors, it's been very disappointing. And like people are like, oh, so why'd you delete the Drake Bell video? I'll tell you why I deleted the Drake Bell video. I deleted it because I was reading from an article that had false information in it. It said,
Yeah. So, here's where we get into the Drake Bell details. Okay. So, after the videos of the case dropped, right? So did articles surrounding the case. And those articles contained false information. Blatantly false information. It stemmed from the New York Times. But there was a lot of wrong and false information going around on the internet that is simply not true. Simply not true. And this is a thing that happens when people share their story or people are accused of anything. What happens is the story that they said is true, but people take it and run it and they change details of the story. And so now, instead of it being one thing, now it's being said it's another thing. And that is very harmful, because what happens is someone realizes that information being spread is false because it's wrong, it's not true, and it negates the experience of the survivor. It now disproves their story entirely. And most people think that if there's one wrong detail in a story, it can't possibly be true. Or they start to wonder what else is untrue. Like, did he even do that? Like, did he even go that far? And I mean, some people have even sided with Drake simply on the basis that she allegedly lied about her age, and wasn't upfront about what was going on. And the moment that he knew, he stopped. So there's a lot of discussion surrounding that. Like, was that wrong? I mean, yes, he should check. Everyone should check. If you're going to be in a relationship, you're going to do anything, always check what their age is. Just so you know. So that there's no way of doubting. Ask for an ID. I think the number one thing that people should start doing is asking for IDs. When a celebrity, when a person of a greater stature is looking to make a relationship with someone that they don't know, someone that they have no relation to, someone who they've never met, never seen, always ask for an ID. Hey, can I have an ID? I just want to check your age. Or it doesn't have to be like that. And if I think some people, what has become this thing is that some people believe that when you ask, it makes it unromantic, or it makes it weird or awkward, or something like that, right? That's the main argument as to why they don't necessarily ask. They try to look for signs and symbols. The problem with that is that women and men are very different in the way that they suggest things. And men and women think very differently on gestures and things that happen. And this happens all the time. Where men think that some sort of gesture means that it's okay. It's the green light. It's the thumbs up. And meanwhile, the woman is thinking, I don't know, I'm not sure, I don't want to, I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna wait for the next date or something. She's thinking something along those lines. But he thinks she hasn't said anything, she hasn't shown any signs of not wanting to, so therefore she must. And then he goes in, and now she's feeling scared and confused as to why this is coming out of the blue. And that's where you have a case startup, or he touched me, he did this, he did X, Y, and Z, or even she. Sometimes the woman gets it wrong, because there are signs that men do have that are not the same to women. And I think that's the real key, is that everyone's like green light or thumbs up is different, and the things that you look for are not all the same. It's like, think about how signs of stroke or signs of a heart attack is going to happen, right? Men and women react very differently because there's different biology. And because of that, a lot of women end up with unchecked seizures or heart attacks that are not able to be predicted because they don't show those signs that they're going to have a seizure or a heart attack or stroke. Like, that has caused a major problem in the health industry, and that's why we're doing research to figure out what are the signs for women, for biological women. And that being said, because neither have a solution as to what is green light, what is red light, whatever, it doesn't hurt to ask. And no one should be offended if somebody asks, right? I'm a celebrity. I'm interested in dating this person. Never met her, never seen her, don't know what she looks like. At that point, I'm going to be like, hey. Or, let's say, well, actually what should happen is she approaches me, interested in dating, and she says, hey, I'm interested in dating, I really like you, really bonded with you, and you say, okay, but before we go any further, I'd just like to check your ID. Just for my comfort, my sake, our sake, before it goes anything further than this. Like, I'm cool with it, like, I'm interested too, but I really need to see an ID. Is there some way you can verify your identity? It just, even that, right? Because being able to verify who someone is very important. Very important. You don't want to get catfish. You don't want to get, you don't want to get caught up into a scam or fraud or any sort of that situation. So just say, hey, you know what? I'm kind of interested in, I'm interested in you too. But before we can continue, I just need to see an ID for my sake. And you check the ID, says she's 18. Okay, she's ready. We can continue. Because I think any other way creates this potential risk that she's not. And if she's not 18, then you can say, hey, look, I'm sorry, I'm not able to pursue this relationship. Like, I'm not able to pursue this relationship. Don't go like, maybe when you're 18, maybe when you're legal. No. Just be like, hey, sorry, I'm not interested. I can't do that. Nope. And just walk out. Don't have any second thoughts. Don't try to reach back in. Just be like, hey, sorry, it's not going to work out. Because if someone is already interested in you, they're not going to be suddenly turned off because you want to verify their age. Or you want to verify who they are. Like, I think that's just for safety. If you're going to date online, if you're going to do online dating, you just want to make sure that who you're dating is who they say they are. And that's it. So when you meet in person, when you meet that person, ask for an ID. Before you go any further, just be like, hey, just for my sake, just need to see an ID. And then we're done. It can be a photo of an ID. As long as you can say that you have seen evidence that this person is 18 and older, then I think you're good. And if she lies about that, if she has a fake ID, that's a much bigger problem than just there being a situation there being a potential age gap there. And even places where it's like a bar, like where you think, oh, everyone's gonna be 21 because only people 21 can drink. Well, some bars allow minors or even people who are just 18 to sit in the bar without drinking. Like, they have like ways of telling, like some bars do allow people who are minors to sit at bars without drinking, or they can have like a mocktail or some non-alcoholic drink. So you can't even be sure that someone who is sitting there at a bar is 18, because you don't know their history. You don't know what is going on, what they're doing, what they're drinking. Like, sure, I mean, if you see someone who is like downing like 8 shots of like vodka or whatever, you can probably assume that they're like 21. Or, I mean, in the UK, that they're 18. Probably, not always. But I would say that would be an indicator that, yeah, maybe you're looking at someone who is of age. So I would say there are signs that you can use to tell about age, but you shouldn't always guarantee it. Yeah. Okay.
He was a registered SO, and that's where my basis was coming from, and it really pissed me off because that doesn't help survivors. That does the opposite. I want to read from things that are like factual and then go eat a predator. I don't like when like media outlets do that shit. I don't like it. Took it down because I didn't like that article that I was reading from, and I wanted to make another video. I did. That's more factual and really says how I feel. And then I was getting harassed from it, and now I don't really feel up to it, okay? As a survivor, I don't feel up to it. But to have people tell me what I think about it or how I feel about it, you don't know me.
That's the other thing that is kind of just a problem in general, is now people are assuming everything about you because you make a decision, because you decide to play a game, because you decide to watch this video or go to this movie, or you support this team, or you support this organization, or we can talk about I think that would be another video to actually make about like things survivors use as an escape, that why it's kind of a little bit of a risk to tell people that they cannot like enjoy this thing anymore. But that's something that requires its own video. But what is important is not assuming anyone's opinion or stance unless they've said otherwise, because there is a lot of like filling in white spaces, like blank space, empty spaces. There's a lot of confirmation bias that people run into. Confirmation bias is when you have a conclusion before the evidence is laid out. And now, because you have that conclusion, all of the evidence is going to point to the conclusion that you've come up with. That is the basis of confirmation bias. It is something that destroys court cases and makes it very difficult to prove or unprove someone's innocence or guilt, because someone has already concluded the results of the case before even seeing the evidence. This is actually the problem of clickbait, right? You see the title. You see Drake Bell arrested for blah, blah, blah. And you assume that title is correct and factual and is not misleading or anything, when it turns out that the meat of the article is not even about that. This happens all the time with media nowadays. They put a title and it's not true, but people assume that it's true simply based on the title, without reading anything else. And that's a problem. That's a big problem. It's something that happens a lot, unfortunately. And that's why I say also, inaction is not proof of guilt. It is not proof of a stance. It is not proof of an opinion. You don't know what anyone is thinking or what anyone is saying or what anyone is supporting based on a non-action. You can't even say that because someone has done X, Y, and Z, this must mean that it is A, B, C. Like, no, that is not how things work. Assuming, there's a saying, assuming makes an ass out of you and me. That's all it does. Because you assume that I did X, Y, and Z, and you were wrong, and now you're the ass. That is something that society in general needs to unlearn. Assuming. Because there's so much parasocial relationships where you feel like you know someone. You feel like you've lived with them or you've grown up with them and now you know everything about them. When you don't. It is impossible to know everything about someone, even your best friend. You have no way of thinking this is how they're going to react. You have no way of thinking this is what they think without asking them. And it is a big problem that we have right now where people are assuming people's opinions, assuming people's stances, assuming people's positions because they don't want to engage on a topic, because they don't want to discuss things. There's always there can always be another reason why, and no one should be forced to talk about something they don't want to do. No one should be forced to give an opinion on something they haven't talked about without someone assuming their opinions, right? It happens all the time. People just fill in the gaps. Like, there are so many times where someone assumes something and they haven't seen any evidence of that case. There is nowhere where you would be able to conclude such a thing, but it happens anyways because they just think that they know you so well, and they don't. You don't know what someone is thinking. There's a lot of internal thoughts, and also doing that is not going to encourage anyone to come out with a story. It's only going to encourage them to not say anything, because what they'll do is they'll see you talking about this person, assuming all these things about them, and they're going to think, oh, so that person probably thinks the same thing about me. And then some people are like, oh, so if I do say something, I'm going to get hate. And if I don't say something, I'm going to hate. So it's a lose-lose either way. So I might as well just not say anything. Which I think is exactly what Alexa has experienced, right? It's a lost cause if she drops a new video and people are just going to hate the responses she gives anyways. Like, at that point, there's no resolution. There's no, oh, if I make this, people are just going to get off my back. You don't know that. You don't know that it's going to stop. You don't know that it's going to end. And it might not end. And that's a very dangerous precedent to set, because it makes people afraid of sharing their experiences, and it causes people to hold in what they might be thinking about a situation. And a lot of people are creating more harm than good by trying to be supportive or trying to do X, Y, and Z, and it doesn't work because it's just not a great place to be put in. Have you ever been having a conversation with a friend and they bring something up, like politics or something that you don't feel comfortable with talking, and like you feel forced to talk about it and you don't want to? Like, you feel like if you don't talk about it, they're gonna assume something about you, and if you do, like, there's so many times where I've had a conversation with someone, talking about my feelings on something, and they immediately assume, because I have a feeling about this thing, they immediately assume my next opinion. Even if I would never in a million years form that opinion, they do that anyways, right? I've had so many conversations where I've said like one small thing and they've already assumed the next step by a million without even giving me the chance to explain and think for myself, right? Like, it's such a common tactic to have someone say like their opinion of something and then using that against them, or using that to judge them, or using that to kind of weaponize against them, when it's not about that. Like, there's so much nuance to a situation. Politics has a lot of gray areas. It's just not right to just take someone's opinion and just like completely shove it in their face and not even listen to like what they're talking about or what they have said, what they have done. Like, there's so much situations where there's times where it's actually ended friendships for me, where I'm like, wow, that person really thinks so low of me. I can't believe that they really thought that. Or like, recently I had a relationship kind of end very abruptly because just the way that they reacted to a situation, it was just so unbelievable. And even though there was still a door open, it was just like, at that point, why even bother? Because it's very uncomfortable to be in. And there are times where I've wanted to go back. There are times where I've wanted to see if I can have a conversation with these people again. And then I'm thinking to myself, why would I? We ended on such a poor term. Like, and then I'm reminded about why I stopped having those conversations with that person. Like, there are people that I just stopped talking to because of like one incident that happened, just because it affected me so much, I just couldn't look at them the same way ever again. And I think that happens a lot too. Like, this is why we have to be careful with how we treat people and the words around us, because we think, oh, they won't care, or it's just one conversation, or like how can a relationship end based on a conversation? And sometimes it's because something you said in that conversation really spoke to them in a way that maybe made them feel a little bit uncomfortable, or it just didn't go well. And I think the problem is we have such a society where conversation is not a thing to have anymore. It's so sad. Like, you cannot have a conversation anymore, like, at all, right? As soon as you say something, someone has another opinion, and they've already kind of judged you, and now it's spiraled into an argument, and now you're like, oh my god. It's kind of impossible to assume that I can actually have a conversation with anyone. Like, sometimes, like, we're having a good conversation, but then they say something and it's like, what? Where did you get that opinion? Where did that come from? Like, because sometimes I never know, right? I never know. A conversation can end very well, very good, and then the next day they react in some way where it's like, what? That's not what I said at all. I think just people in general lack the ability to have a conversation. And that's really created a sad situation in where we can no longer discuss. This is why we can't have change. This is why we can't do these things, because now there's always going to be an opinion. There's always going to be someone talking about, like, it's just so difficult to navigate. Like, I want to believe that what we're doing is going to be able to really change things, to really give the opportunity for real change to happen. And if we can't have these conversations without tearing each other apart, if we can't have these conversations without completely, like, destroying someone, then I don't think anything we do will ever really be effective, because everyone's going to have a different opinion on what it has to change. And in the real world, you have to have a real conversation, not just like assuming someone's bad or shutting them out because you don't like what they said. Like, it's difficult to see a world where just people just destroy each other on the same side because they have one differing thought, because they question how something works, because they don't believe in the groupthink ideology. That is a very dangerous place to be in, and we are in that place right now. All I'm saying is that we have to have these conversations. We have to have a real conversation, not just jumping to conclusion, not just like hating on someone because they did X, Y, and Z. No, we need a conversation as to what we can do to change and not have that happen again. And we have to convince the other side that it is such an important issue that we cannot have it happen again, regardless of political views, regardless of disagreements. Like, politics is such a... I hate politics so much, because it's always like something that you can't escape. And the problem is that life is politics now. Everything is politics now, whether you like it or not. You can say that, oh, it's just, if we're talking about human lives, it's not politics. Like, yeah, it is. I mean, it is. Unfortunately, it is. It's not something that can be avoided anymore. It is. Like, when you don't engage in these conversations, when you don't want to engage, now you're being forced to. There are reasons that I don't touch on certain topics on my main channel, even in this work, because it's like everyone is so against each other. Everyone is so polarized against each other, even people on the same side. And that is a very scary place to be in.
Me, I didn't like that. And I wanted to make a video from a factual space where I wasn't being like,
that makes sense,
told what something was. I wanted to know what it was and eat a predator. But then I'm the problem. Got harassed.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
So I'm not gonna make one. And I don't owe anyone anything. As a survivor, we don't owe anyone anything.
That's true as well. That's true. I'm sorry if you don't like that. I'm sorry if you have like disagreements on what you said, but it is true, right? Just as Jeanette McCurdy does not owe Josh Peck a podcast episode, neither does Alexa. Alexa does not owe anyone a response because, number one, she's not involved in the situation, and number two, she doesn't have to do anything. She doesn't have to have the channel that she has. She doesn't have to go to these petitions or protests or anything. Like, she doesn't have to do anything that she doesn't want to do. And I think sometimes the problem is that we take inaction as a sign that someone is against us, when that's not true. It's not true at all. Okay? Just because someone doesn't want to engage in a particular activity or protest or boycott or whatever does not mean that they're actually against the movement. It doesn't. Right? When people wanted to play Hogwarts Legacy, it didn't actually mean that they were necessarily against what people stood for. It just meant that maybe they didn't think that that was an effective way of doing what you wanted to do. I'm one of those people, right? I didn't think that that was an effective way of showing to J.K. Rowling, like, that we don't like her or whatever. Like, it's not an effective way. She doesn't care. She's a multi-billionaire. She's not going to care if two people don't play her game. Like, it's not something that would affect the bottom line. It's not something that it would even phase her. Like, she does not care. The thing is, even if Hogwarts Legacy completely failed, even if Hogwarts Legacy sold 0 copies, guess what? J.K. Rowling would not care. Because she already got that success in the first place. She literally has that success everywhere. The millions of people who read her books, the billions of people who watched the movies, that is all she needed. Nothing ever will matter ever again. Because she's already made her money. Okay? That is that. So, no. Just because someone does not want to go with the message that you put out, just because someone does not want to participate in what you think they should, doesn't mean that they are the enemy. Doesn't mean that they're the enemy at all. It doesn't mean that they're actually against you. And that's the problem, right? People think that because someone doesn't want to do something means that they have to think this way. They have to be the enemy. If you're not with me, you're against me. That is not the mindset to have. That is not the mindset to have at all. No. Just because someone is not with you doesn't mean that they're against you either. Okay. Telling someone that because they don't give a response, that means that they're supporting predators or pedophiles? No. No, that is not the opinion to have. That should never be in your opinion. Supporting predators is continuing to be friends with them and engaging with them afterwards. And I know what people are thinking, right? Isn't that what Alexis did with Drake Bell? Well, first of all, we don't even know the conversations that even happen. We don't even know if they even talk to each other. Like, we don't know what happens behind closed doors because those are private conversations. We don't actually know if Alexa really supports Drake Bell or if she even talks to him, right? Beyond the documentary. Of course, they probably talked about the documentary because it's just something that happens, right? But just because they were co-stars once, just because they were on the same network does not mean they were best friends. Does not mean that they support each other at all. And guess what? Every person is independent. Everyone is an individual to themselves. They don't have to have a relationship with each other, right? Just because I'm cousins or related to someone doesn't mean that I necessarily like them or even engage with them or have I even met them. Who knows? So again, you should never assume anything because assuming makes an ass out of you and me.
It feels good to say that.
I can't believe we're only in 2 minutes. We're only at 2 minutes. Sorry, we're only at 2 minutes of this video, and we're at 53 minutes of the stream. My bad.
Ever again. By survivors. People enabling my stalker, for example. So disturbing. I'm actually speechless. So I'm done with that. I'm not revisiting it. I know exactly how I feel about it, and I don't want to talk about it. I got bullied out of being able to talk about it. What does that do? Then there was all these conspiracies and misconceptions and this and that. I was like, oh my god. What I just don't personally like is misinformation. For example, I comment on that TikTok thing because that was false. You had somebody on TikTok saying Drake covers up his tattoos to go hang out with minors by the ruins. This doesn't help survivors.
Especially when that wasn't Drake Bell. That was not Drake Bell. That was a completely different person. Come on.
problematic because now some girl has to go on TikTok being like, I wasn't groomed. What? Let's talk about actual grooming. And let's not put people in a scenario where they are having to go onto TikTok and say that was their unalive cousin. I mean, that was wild.
Also, because imagine if that was true, that she was in that situation, but it wasn't from Drake Bell, but it was from another person. Like, now you're forcing her to talk about her story when she didn't necessarily want to in the first place. Now you're forcing someone to come out. That's the thing. That's the best comparison. Okay? What it feels like to be forced to share your story, the best comparison to that is being forced to be out. Because both situations are very uncomfortable. It's not on your own terms, and now you feel very guarded. You feel very insecure and unprotected and in danger of potential situations at home. Like, imagine if he was alive and he saw that, and he saw it as a potential threat and even escape. Like, maybe there's a DMV situation. You don't know what's going on, right? And now he sees that, and now it escalates even further than what it was already being. Okay, there's very dangerous consequences to forcing someone to be outed as a survivor, as in general, to telling something they don't want to say, because maybe there's a reason why they're not saying it. Forcing Ariana Grande to speak about a situation that she is no part of, that's not going to help the cause. Even if she did have a situation, doesn't mean that she should be forced to say so, because that's going to affect her reputation as well. And what are you going to do when she does say something? What if she says that nothing happened? You're going to harass her and be like, oh, she supports Dan Schneider. That is a very dangerous place to be in. And it's not a great place to get what you want. Just saying.
Someone put an emoji on top of someone's face who happened to be the girl's DEAD cousin? That I don't like, okay? There's things that I stand for and there's things that I do not like. That I really don't think is appropriate. I don't think it's helpful. And I actually think it's part of the problem. So I commented on it. I took a stand. I was going to take a stand about how I felt about Drake Bell, but I got bullied. So no. And that's the end of that with me. And I'm so tired of people asking me about it, and I understand.
Do you remember when there were these anti-bullying campaigns? Right? This is very, very frequent, happened almost like every year, like in my childhood, right? There was always like an anti-bullying video. And what some people would do in some bullying situations is that they would then retaliate against their bully, right? They're going to fight back against their abuser. And then, lo and behold, they now become the bully. They take it a step further than retaliation, than revenge. They take it even further. There are ways that people take revenge that end in DEAD. And it's a very scary situation, right? And never mind. Actually, let's just continue.
Understand why? But
Don't harass people. Don't bully people.
I was even afraid, for the last few weeks, to say this. I took it down because I don't like that article, and I wanted to make a factual video that actually did the reported survivors justice, and and no, then I'm good. I'm gonna live my life in peace, moving through this. But I refuse to be bullied. I refuse to be harassed, and I refuse falsehoods about me. Don't we all? We should.
no one has to be forced to be a martyr. No one has to be forced to sacrifice themselves. And I think that's what people think, right? I think people think that the leader of a cause, or the leader of a movement, like me, like Alexa, have to do things to destroy ourselves, to take the fall, to do X, Y, and Z, to speak about these things. No, we don't have to. I think it's more authentic when we choose to, right? When has forcing an apology out of anyone helped anything? Right? All they do is they read off a script created by ChatGPT and call it an apology. Like, it doesn't help. If they're going to do it, they should do it on their own accord, not because someone pressured them to do so.
Survivors have had enough. Power to survivors. No, thank you. And I there was one person that specifically I blocked. And the reason why I blocked her was because she was legit. Blocked her was because she was legit saying defamatory tweets about me and enabling my stalker, who I have an RO against, and like posting his videos. And when I saw that, I was like, no thank you, don't need you in my life. Because if you really cared about survivors, you wouldn't spend all day harassing them, enabling their stalker, trying to hurt their feelings, forcing them to say something. That's not consent, by the way. Breaking the cycle, you know what that means? No coercion. That Twitter account is full of coercion and force. And I don't believe in that. I don't like coercion. What survivor likes coercion?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, that's exactly right. Right? If we're going to have people held accountable, everybody needs to be held accountable. Whether you're a celebrity, whether you're famous, whether you are just some random person on the internet. And that's the problem as well. A lot of people are hypocrites on the internet. They say one thing and do the next thing. Like, they don't look at themselves. And we need to look at ourselves. We need to self-evaluate ourselves, because we need to realize that sometimes our own actions are bad. And our own actions add to something that makes it worse or something, right? Like, if you're not willing to look at yourself and say, hey, maybe I shouldn't have done that, like maybe that was sort of like a step too far, if you're not able to reflect and kind of reconsider like changing your opinion, then how are we going to change anything, right?
I don't. So I blocked that person, and I'm glad I did. So when people are like, oh, you block someone, that means you support Drake. I blocked that person because that person was harassing me. I don't like that. That's personally not the way that I operate. Don't do it. Then I read an article on MSNBC News, and it was basically about how the Drake Bell reported survivors were being harassed, which, first of all, don't harass anybody. I don't get what this harassment thing is. Don't harass anyone. What? By the way, like cyber bullying, all these things are illegal. Okay? Don't do it. It's not worth it. But I read this article and I was like, this is horrible. Like, no one should be harassed. No one. But then I saw the person that I blocked was mentioned in that article. And I found it really disturbing because that person who was mentioned in the article was harassing me. Still is. It feels like their entire day is just tweeting about me. Weird. Who are you? And they're all like bot accounts, right? You don't even know who they are, who's behind that. Anyone can be behind that account. Mm-hmm. Who is that person? And why do you spend all day trying to harass a survivor?
Yeah, don't harass people. It doesn't add to anything. It doesn't actually do anything. Don't do that.
But I found it really weird to see that inside of the article. If we are pro not harassing survivors, that means don't harass survivors. Simple. Don't do it. Don't harass them. There are predators out there that need to be eaten. Wasting it on survivorhood is so strange. If that much energy that people put into tearing each other down went to eating predators and actually doing some justice in this world, we'd change the world. But instead, we're down here at the bottom eating each other. And predators love that, by the way, because they don't get eaten. They just watch all of us down there eat each other.
Oh, yeah.
Like, that does anything at all. And none of these people, I don't...
It's like, again, people who were going after people for just playing Hogwarts Legacy. Meanwhile, J.K. Rowling is, like, lounging on a beach drinking martinis because she does not care about the success or failure of Hogwarts Legacy. Okay. People were saying that people, like, J.K. would be, like, hurt because Hogwarts Legacy wouldn't sell anything. Why would she? She has no part in the project. She does not own anything except for the original concepts, right? And the name, Harry Potter. Like, that's what she owns. Like, she does not she didn't have anything to do with Hogwarts Legacy. Why would that invalidate or validate her opinion at all? And instead you're harassing devs, you're harassing actors on the projects, you're harassing streamers to the point of them crying, trying to get them to stop. You're the problem at that point, not JK. Like, there are problems with JK, alright? But if you're going to be the person to advocate for harassing and bullying people, you're not the solution to stopping it.
I don't think I've met this person on from Twitter. Show up to a protest in the rain. Get active. Stop eating each other. It's so old. And it's what predators love, by the way. They love it. Let's knock it off. That breaks the cycle. Breaking the cycle starts with us. And that means we don't recycle ABUSE. Wild out there. Like, wild. And I'm done. I'm done with that. I know who I am. Really know who I am. I got nothing to hide. Other people do, and I can tell, and it shows. But I do not. I got nothing to hide. So I have, what did I say earlier? I'll tell you what freedom is. No fear. And I want more survivors out there to feel that. Because people are always going to try and tear down survivors. It's the wrong thing to do. Especially if you say you support survivors, that's the wrong thing to do. Which, by the way, it's so funny when people are like on Twitter and they're like, Alexa, like, because she took down the Drake Bell video, like, that means she's dude, I don't have Drake Bell on my show here. I'm not platforming him, and I'm not like trying to, like, I would have an actual conversation first of all if I were even ever to do that, right? But that's not even happening. Chrissy Carlson Romano, don't even compare me to her, because it didn't even work. She had this person on her show and didn't care to ask him the right questions, was biased, and then left the survivors on red after he was on her show. Jesus, these trolls. Get your facts straight. So that felt good. That felt really good to just say that. Felt really good. And thank you, whoever's here listening. I don't even know who's there listening, but it felt really good to be able to just say that. I'm not afraid of the trolls. And there's haters watching right now. What? No fear. No fear. And that feels really good to say. And if anyone wants to judge me, go right ahead. But please don't harass me. You don't need to like me. That's okay. Survivors aren't here for you to be liked. Survivors aren't here for you to be liked. For you to like them. Okay? I don't exist for, you to like me. I don't. No one exists for people to like them. You just show up every single day the best that you can. Try to make some change in your little corner in the world. That's the truth. Sadly, that's all we can do. We're not eternal, and I know that. And so I hope that each person just shows up daily trying to make a little change in their little corner, and that's it.
Yeah. That's all we can do.
Someone next after you doing that same thing, and someone next doing that same thing. It doesn't make you special. That's the thing. It doesn't even make you special, but it should humble you that you weren't the first to make a little tiny change in your corner, and you won't be the last.
Yeah.
And trying to hog the corner and who contributed to the corner, please. That's archaic. No.
Okay, so that's basically the gist of everything. So, let's do something that we probably shouldn't do and go into the comments and see what people are saying. Deleting my Twitter account was the best thing I've ever done for my mental health. Yeah, same for me. Believe it or not, deleting social media is a really good thing. And I'm not meaning like YouTube or like anything like that. I just mean like Twitter. Like, don't go on Twitter. Don't use Twitter. Don't do it. You'll see that your life becomes so much more valuable when you're not on Twitter. Like, it's so much healthier just to not look at Twitter. Okay. Just because someone is a survivor doesn't mean that they get a pass at being a jerk, harassing, or bullying, especially treating another survivor that way. Yeah. Breaking the cycle means not doing what they did to you. Right? In order to break the cycle, we have to stop doing the things that we're advocating against, right? If we're advocating against harassment and bullying, and then we're going next door and bullying somebody else, that doesn't help. That doesn't show that we actually want that change. I'm sure Drake wasn't the only child Brian essayed. It definitely wasn't the first. It also definitely wasn't the first. But all that time, he was unregistered. My sister's... okay, never mind. I'm not going to read that. We're seriously going to act like Twitter wasn't toxic before Elon Musk? It was. Elon Musk was not the main contributor. But, I mean, Elon Musk did help. It has gotten way worse, it feels like. A lot of people left when he took over, and was left... And what was left are generally the most confrontational, intellectually dishonest type of jerk. I don't look beyond my personal feed anymore because I don't go online to get wound up by other people arguing, lol. It is not good for my mental health. Drake is a victim, but also an abuser. Him being abused as a child doesn't change the harm he's done to others. Drake has multiple abuse allegations. Here's the thing. Two things can be true. You can be an abuser, and you can be a victim. Okay? You can be a victim, and you can be an abuser. Those are two things that can be true at the same time. One does not invalidate the other, but also one does not make the other any less worse. Okay. Here's the thing, right? People are putting aside what happened to Drake because of the things that he did and completely ignoring it, saying that he deserved it, saying that like it doesn't matter because he did this. What? No, everyone can agree that what happened to Drake was fucked up and wrong and should never happen again. Everyone can agree with that, okay? That should not be any question or anything, okay? Do I even want to look at this conversation? Oh my god. People have said that, but have no proof to back it up. It was a one-time incident where he was texting her, but as far... Okay, you know what? No, that was a mistake. Don't look at replies. There's a whole conversation happening there. I'm sure Drake would be willing to speak with you personally if you haven't already. Maybe you don't like Twitter because it's calling you out on very valid points that are chosen to be ignored. Going on a predator's podcast when people said not to and not saying a word about it afterwards, for one. I think we have to go on those platforms. I think we have to go to places that we don't like. Because otherwise, how are we going to make a change? If we're only talking to the people that we like, we're only talking to the people that have the same opinions, we're never going to change anything. We have to go into those platforms, regardless of whether you like it or not. Okay? Here's the thing. We have to work with those people, because those people are going to allow us to be able to make those changes. Period. Whether they were or won't, or whether they will or won't, we have to have those conversations with people regardless of whether we like them or not. We have to have conversations with people like Drake Bell. We have to have conversations with people like Trisha. We have to have those conversations with people who are right-winged, okay? We have to have those conversations because it's necessary to have. And in order to change, we have to talk to the people that don't agree with us. Period. So I don't like I don't like this idea that because this person did this, we can't be on their platform. That is not helpful. That is not helpful. We can't just talk to ourselves. We're not going to make a change that way. Period. Don't let people troll you into talking about what you want to. They don't really care about victims. They just want to troll you into stopping what you're doing. I think that's valid too, right? Some people, here's the thing, some people like to infiltrate, like to pretend that they are on our side and are not actually on our side, just to stir up the conversation, just to stir up the arguments. The shot heard around the world. That's what I'll say. It's the shot heard around the world. Stop bullying and harassing survivors. That just makes you a different kind of predator. Never stop, Alexa. The world needs you to stand up against all the predators. You're doing an amazing thing. Thank you for explaining your reasoning and thoughts. I deeply respect you, and it was confusing to me as a viewer that you deleted the video without explaining why. Especially after making a powerful effort to hold space for Drake Bell with being a survivor and a predator. I would hate to see this survivor's story get forgotten, but listening to her testimony in court was heartbreaking. As you said, you don't owe anyone anything, but I hope as a community we can still acknowledge when speaking about Drake that his victim's story is also valid. True. I agree with that. No one should be harassing you or anyone else, but there are some videos addressing legitimate concerns that it feels like you are just skirting away from. I am also a survivor, and this is leaving me and other survivors very confused. I thought this was a safe space, but now I'm not so sure. Trying to have an open dialogue is something I thought you'd want to promote. I don't like that phrasing. I feel like it is a little bit guilt-tripping, and I think we need to watch out for that as well. Sometimes what we can do is we can try to guilt trip and manipulate people into talking about things that they don't want to do, and that is also not a way to go about things. Also, I think like Alexa said, she doesn't really owe any conversation. I think sometimes the problem is that we use the labels that we're a survivor and that we have the ability to kind of say this and that. You're not exempt from being held accountable. Do I want to open this conversation up? Never mind. You should have more nuance with Drake. I want you to condemn his actions he's made as an adult, but we can also feel bad for what happened to him as a kid. His victim is being harassed and discredited every day, and that's exactly what you stand against, or at least preach. I hope you don't see this as bullying, but you run an activist group for survivors, so it's very important for you to stand by every survivor, not just famous ones. I hated how Quiet on Set just brushed over Drake's crimes. That was very weird. It feels like everyone is just trying to brush it under the rug. I thought that's what you stand against. You changed the narrative of society's stance on a convicted predator. You were not bullied. You were being held accountable. Talking about cycle breaking, Alexa, you were breaking it. Okay. Okay, so here's the thing. Here's the thing. Telling someone they weren't bullied or they weren't abused or they weren't manipulated does not help anything. It doesn't. It's kind of a weird thing to say, actually. Because that's such a weird thing to do. Like telling someone that they're not disabled, telling something that their experience is invalid because of XYZ. No. You can literally read the tweets that she screenshotted and showed. Yeah, that was bullying and harassment. There's not really two ways about it. Just as you can hold Alexa accountable for not doing something or not saying something, you can also hold the people that were going after her accountable as well. In order to hold people accountable, you have to hold everyone accountable. Every single person. Whether you're on their side or not, it doesn't matter. Hold them all accountable. What is the Reddit? What do I want to look at Reddit? I think it's a bad idea, but let's do it anyways. Okay, let's look at Reddit's conversations. I think it's a little ironic for her to take this stance when her community is just asking for clarity and accountability. Also, a lot of screenshots from Drake's own Discord are showing that he encouraged harassment of his accusers and has been effectively changing the narrative so that he can get away with abuse. My initial take away from her saying survivors don't owe you anything about taking down the video struck me in an odd way. Mostly because I think that only survivors not needing to explain themselves will only further encourage people to use the term as a shield. But I also straight up disagree. If you're running a survivors activism movement, you owe your followers an explanation to taking down a video about someone pleading guilty or to sexting a teenage girl. Even a single community post saying took the Drake Bell video down because I got new info. A follow up with my current thoughts will be coming soon. Would probably be enough for most people. Yep, if it was just any survivor, it wouldn't be a big deal. But Alexa's literally charging people for her guidance. It's really starting to show that she doesn't have the degrees or the knowledge to be offering anything to other survivors in exchange for their money. She reminds me of a lot of something. Okay. So she's allowed to. Okay. This was a mistake. Okay, I didn't mean to do that. Here's the thing, right? The problem, if we don't find unity in the approach that we take, is that everyone is going to have a different opinion as to how we approach such things. And some people are going to feel like we have to attack every situation that ever happens. And others are going to feel that we have to plan our attacks more strategically and not just go after everyone. And two of those sides can be valid. It can be a valid approach to go after every single person. The problem is that it's a very long list to go after. I also think that it is the duty of an activist to have done their research and have the most information possible. I don't think it's okay to just omit things because we feel it's convenient or I think she could have probably said something along the lines of I took that on this video because I just need to do a little bit more information, and I'm planning on doing a follow-up video in a month or so, just so that I can make sure that I cover the full details of the case. I think going back and correcting something that has false information is important to do, because otherwise that's how misinformation gets started and spread further down the line. And there was misinformation regarding the Drake Bell case that was going around everywhere, even on TikTok and everything. So pretending like there wasn't misinformation is a little bit disingenuous in what happened in the situation, and it erases the gray areas that are there. I agree that no survivor owes their story. No survivor owes anything to any movement or cause or anything. I think that's why I want to be a team in this, so that I don't owe anything to this space. No one person owes anything, right? If I don't want to converse in something, if I don't want to talk about something, that doesn't mean that someone else can't. It doesn't mean that someone else on the team can't. I have provided the ability for people to be able to post on this channel, even those that are not staff members, even those who just want to share their story or opinions or feelings. But then it will come with regulations. It will come with moderation, because I don't want this platform to turn into let's hate everyone, let's harass everyone, let's talk ill of Alexa or anyone that we disagree with. I think also what we need to realize is people are able to make mistakes. People are able to be human. People are allowed to have mistakes. Okay. And I don't think cancel culture is really the way that we make those changes happen. I don't agree with cancel culture at all in that approach. I think that the most effective way is to change the laws, to get people to change their policies, to change the work environments, to do that, to go after that first, to show these companies, these studios, what needs to be changed. That is what's important. Okay, we can go after every single person and say what every single person did wrong, but the truth is that it's just everyone. Everyone is part of the problem. Everyone is part of the cycle. Everyone contributes to it, whether you like it or not. You are contributing to the cycle. You are. Because you're going after and harassing Alexa and people don't, it's so weird that people don't realize their own contributions to the cycle. And that's why it's so hard to make that change possible, because no one realizes what they're doing is wrong. And they think because they have everyone on their side that automatically makes them right. I do want to use this platform. I do want to use this for good, but I don't necessarily want to talk about literally everything. And there are going to be restrictions of what this platform does talk about. and I mean this YouTube channel, there are spaces in the Discord for you to join to talk about other things that I might not feel comfortable about talking about, but you can have at it and talk about those things. I just don't want to be a part of that conversation, and I think that's why it's important that there's no one entity controlling this movement. There's no one person controlling this movement, because we're all going to have differing opinions of how we feel about something. Okay? We're all going to feel different ways. That's why I don't want this to be a hierarchy situation. I don't want to be on the top. I don't want to be the CEO. I don't want to be the top of the company. I want to be part of the movement. Right? To me, I'm just making the tools and the resources and putting it all together so that it's possible. So that we can have these conversations. So that we can make a change in this world. Because if we don't, what are we doing? But I don't think any person, anyone, is the head or the martyr of a movement. I think treating someone like they are supposed to be a martyr, treating someone like they're supposed to be this hero that saves the day, that's not going to help the situation. Because you have to recognize that Alexa is a human being too. I'm a human being too. We've probably both done things that we're not proud of, that we don't like, that we wish that we could have taken back. And maybe Alexa does think that she could have handled the situation a little bit better. Maybe she does think that, oh yeah, I messed up on that situation. Let me change and fix that. Like, I think that's the thing, right? People are saying, oh, this will help satisfy most people. Like, doing this would satisfy most people. It doesn't. It doesn't actually do that. It doesn't. You have to realize that anything that you do, people won't be satisfied with what the outcome is. So in some cases, yeah, doing nothing is better because no one can say you did or didn't, right? Sometimes it is just a little bit better to just not say something at all. And that's a very also dangerous situation to have. Like, if people think that they shouldn't, if people think that they can't talk about a situation because otherwise it'll end poorly, it's very dangerous. Very dangerous. And I hope that if anything, we can continue having a dialogue. We can continue conversing about these situations and expanding and growing on them. Like, we will be talking about, like, apology videos and such. We'll be I think some of the next videos that we'll do with this series is going in and talking about, like Adam McIntyre's videos and doing stuff like that, where we talk about the situation, but we also talk about kind of the approaches and everything, and going off of what people are saying, and also making sure that all opinions are recognized as well. I think if you felt hurt by Alexa's actions, that's valid too. It's not invalid to say, oh, I didn't like how she approached that. I think that's fair, as long as it doesn't turn into let's go harass and hate her, right? Some people are adding to the cycle by doing such things, and it doesn't help anyone. It really doesn't. Like, yes, you're valid for having such an opinion, but it doesn't help to then go and just harass because you don't like how she handled it. Just doesn't. Anyways, that's it for the stream. That was kind of a lot more than I thought it would be, even though it was only 12 minutes. But I was going to do more. But now I don't have the energy to do more. And I'm realizing that if I do more, it'll be like 2 hours long. So, like 2 more hours long. And I don't have that time. So I'll definitely do more of these. Just kind of talking about these things and engaging. That's what I want this to be. So, thank you guys for watching. And I hope you guys enjoy.